I think writing any kind of historical fiction is daunting because your readers are often tuned in to that era, and so you have to be on top of it so that they don't go, ooh, that's wrong, right? But in my particular case, what I started out with was by reading fiction and nonfiction about the era I was going to write about. And a lot of people say, well, they don't want to read fiction, but the fiction has been researched for you, right? So when you read fiction and both nonfiction, the first place you go after you've read the book is to the back of the book, where there are often additional resources. Well, people will say, well, this was extremely helpful when I went, this particular book was very helpful, this resource was very useful. So you start gathering a library. So the first place I went was to start to create a library. Other resources that I relied on heavily was a magazine called Biblical Archaeological Review. For example, one of the things that I have is a scene at a first century synagogue in Palestine. And BAR, Biblical Archaeological Review, actually had a whole article on a synagogue that they had discovered in Galilee, and they explained how it was laid out, they explained how it was used, the type of architecture that they made to build it, the type of stone that was used to build it. All of that stuff came into play for my novel, so it was a great source of research. I also relied on a few websites, but I'm not a big fan of going to the internet as your primary source, because as we all know, especially today about the talk about fake news, there's a lot of stuff that's sort of hand-waving on the internet, where you see blogs and people's opinion pieces, but they may not be authoritative in their knowledge and are much depth in their knowledge about the subject matter. So I think the internet is a secondary backup source, but the internet as a primary source is great for things like maps and images. There are a few good websites. I went to a website called Nabatean.org, all about the Nabatean culture. And it's apparently one of the few authoritative sources out there anywhere on the Nabatean culture. So I pulled on that for my particular book.